Hey, thanks for listening to this Trainer Spotlight episode on FITLETE Radio. My name is George Pagan III. Let's meet our coach.
My name is Jacob Martinez. I'm the lead performance coach for OrthoNebraska, athletic performance and adult fitness. OrthoNebraska is a hospital that serves the Omaha metro and surrounding areas in Nebraska. Outside of the hospital system, obviously we have things like physical therapy, but then after physical therapy, that's where we come in and handle things from the sports performance side or adult fitness. But that being said, we don't just work with people coming off of injuries or athletes coming off of injuries. We work with healthy athletes. We work with healthy adults to try to reach their performance goals, their health and wellness goals, things like that. Our athletes can range anywhere from 9 to 10 years old all the way through college. And our adults, we see older adults that may come off a knee replacement or a hip replacement, but we also see general population, people wanting to get in shape.
I know you're an awesome coach and take your job seriously, but to get to know you a little bit more, can you tell us a funny story about your life that happened outside of coaching?
All right, so one thing that not a lot of people know about me, once my coworkers work with me for a while, they figure it out. But so I used to rap. I was never super popular or anything like that, but I used to just make hip hop music. And during that era, I had a show, and not a lot of people, but it was a small little show, and I'm doing my set, everything's going great, and there had been this Native American guy that had been pretty inebriated before I ever got up on the stage, but maybe I'll take this as a compliment because he had been there the whole show, but then once it was my set, he gets up on the show. And I'll edit myself out here because I'm not sure if this is a family show or not. But the guy gets on the stage and he starts doing this like little dance on the stage and kind of, so he's getting into it, which I'm good with. It helps the show, helps everyone get hype. Everyone's kind of laughing, having fun. And then he grabs the microphone in the middle of my song and he points to the crowd. He looks around and he says, "Don't go around." And then he got kind of kicked off the stage, but but he was kind of my hype man for the night. And the show ended up being just fine, and we had fun, and it's still something to this day that my wife and I, when we look at each other and we're kind of annoying each other, we'll give each other that point and we'll say, "Hey, don't go around."
We can't train everyone exactly the same. Our clients come to us having different life experiences and sometimes force us to think outside the box when it comes to their training. As a coach, how do you problem solve with your clients who come to you with some common aches, pains, injuries, some physical limitations, or previous traumas so they can still get the results that they want and the ones that they came to you for?
One of the benefits to working at OrthoNebraska is this very large continuum of care that we have, all the way from surgery to physical therapy, all the way to us on the performance side. So if an athlete has an injury, they get the surgery, then they get sent off to PT and they have to see PT for a while. Sometimes we work congruently with that athlete. So they might see the physical therapist a day or two a week, and they might see us on the performance side a day or two a week. So that really helps keep a line of communication of what is that athlete even cleared to do. And so if they're not cleared to do a particular thing, obviously we have modifications or work on the body parts that they can use until they're fully cleared to do things like that. Outside of that, just dealing with normal aches and pains really is just focusing on what are we trying to accomplish with that athlete. If there's this particular movement or a particular body part we're trying to address, what can that athlete do? Rather than focusing on the things that the athlete can't do, what can that athlete do? And so we'll modify around that. What is the movement that we're trying to accomplish? I always say I'm only married to Krista Martinez, right? So if an athlete has trouble with the back squat or a front squat, I have plenty of other ways and modes to work with that athlete. I'm not tied to just doing a squat. I don't care about the exercise. I care about the movement. What are we trying to address? What are the things that we're working with? So really, I just kind of break it down to like what is the movement that we're trying to accomplish? What is the body part we're trying to accomplish? And what are the parameters that I can work within based off that athlete? So whether it's a squat, we'll find some sort of squat pattern that they can accomplish well, whether it's elevating the heels or just going unilateral on something. If there's a hip hinge that we're trying to accomplish, what are ways that we can modify that movement so they can do that more easily and more successfully? And then the same thing with pushing or pulling exercises. So there's a lot of, as long as I'm trying to push, when we're trying to push, I don't care if it's a bench press or a push-up or a dumbbell or a barbell or a landmine. So we're usually able to get our athletes to do what we need them to do. Same thing with our adults. Sometimes we have adults that have very, very limited things that they can do. But so we just really focus on the things that they can do and then use implements or tools that allow them to be successful.
Just like we are, most of our clients are spending time on social media and can get information from other people in their family and social circles. When questions come up during coaching calls and training sessions, how do you address some of the common misconceptions around nutrition and exercise with these clients?
The two main things that pop into my head off top to that question would be the first, building trust and rapport. And the other thing would be using active listening skills to get yourself to building trust and rapport. Nobody wants to meet someone for the first time and then a coach comes in and says, oh yeah, that's dumb. That's not what the research says, or that's not what the science says. It's really not a great way to sort of kick off that interaction with somebody you just met and they're coming to you for advice. I think one thing that coaches tend to do is we want to fix things. It's usually why we get into the line of work that we do, is we want to help people. We want to help them make the right decisions, but we get too quick to diagnose the things rather than hearing them out. The best thing that we can do is ask them open-ended questions, use our active listening skills, understand where they're coming from, and then help them get to the space that we think is best for them, right? Helping them understand by asking those open-ended questions, like maybe they can figure this out on their own, that why that would be a misconception or why that would be misinformation out there on the internet, or, things like that. Obviously, we go and we get these degrees and we think we're super smart. So we immediately want to do the thing to try to fix it. But I think you have to, and then also, like I said before, you wouldn't want to tell somebody that they're wrong right when you meet them. It's probably not a great way to build trust. But as they connect with you and they build trust with you, you're not going to have to fight with them so much about what the right answer is. They'll likely just trust you, especially if they're coming to you as their coach. They're going to sort of ask you the question and you can give them an answer, and then they'll believe it, and they'll start believing you more than the source that they started reading on the internet, right? Because you have that trust with them. You don't have to battle back and forth for that. So that's kind of how I attack those things.
Our clients can come to us for many reasons, and often they tell us in their consultations or new lead questionnaire that they have multiple goals, or they're trying to work on a couple of things. Usually it's not just one sole specific thing. How do you approach goal setting with these clients who have multiple objectives when you ask them about what their goals are?
I don't think necessarily having multiple goals is a bad thing, because maybe achieving one goal can help get you to the next goal, sort of checking something off the list, like I accomplished this, so now it's going to help me get to the next thing. I do think having too many goals or multiple goals, if you're not careful, can be discouraging or frustrating, because if you're not checking things off the list, then you start to lose the motivation to achieve those goals. So one thing that I would sort of steal from the book Switch, How to Change When Change is Hard by Dan and Chip Heath, is shrink the change. So just using smaller goals to help you maybe achieve the larger goal. So achieving this thing can help you get to the next thing, so to speak. And then when you check that one thing off the list, it can be rewarding and it can be motivating and encouraging versus being discouraging from trying to reach this insurmountable goal. The other thing that I use with my athletes a lot is outcome goals versus process goals. You know, I know this isn't necessarily in the weight room, but I also coach softball. So to use something like an outcome goal is like, I want to hit 300. I want to hit for over 300 this year, right? So if that's my outcome goal, I might hit 295 and now I feel like a failure because I didn't hit my goal. But if I have a process goal, that can help me achieve my goal of hitting 300. But if my process goal is I want to hit 3 times a week on my own for 15 minutes outside of practice, that's something that I can control. Whereas if I hit 300, I can't necessarily control all of the variables that go into that. What if I hit a screamer and the shortstop makes a great snag? What if I have a terrible umpire that day and they have a terrible strike zone? Like I can't always control every parameter with that. Whereas a process goal for the most part can be within your control. So, that's kind of how I approach goal setting. And that's probably how I would address multiple goals. Like, what is the outcome that they want, and what is the process that we can help get them to their main thing.
I believe all coaches should have similar baseline knowledge before starting to work with people. And I'm building FITLETE to help bridge some of these gaps that exist in our exposure to education. What experiences or qualifications do you think are crucial for coaches to have in order to deliver the best service they can for their clients?
This one's a tougher question for me because I don't know if there's any qualifications that I feel like are out there that I'm just like, oh yeah, if you don't get this one, then you're not up to snuff. Because I think there's so many pathways to helping people out there. I think fitness gets too much like religion or politics, where you got this camp on this side of the aisle that says, oh, the other side's a bunch of idiots. And there you got the other side on this side that says, oh, this camp is a bunch of idiots. You only have to scroll Instagram for so long to find out how some of those conversations go. And so I hesitate to say any specific qualifications. So I do the interviews at OrthoNebraska. I hire and onboard coaches at OrthoNebraska. So I'll give you what I work off of, what I'm looking for. I want to see the X's and O's out of coaches. So when I say that, I mean something around the technical skills and the technical knowledge of coaching. So kinesiology, I want to see exercise physiology. I want to see them be able to program. So the things that they can do around that and whatever certifications that or classwork that they can do to help them get that up to par is a good thing. But there's also a big piece of behavior change that I don't think is taught enough in 4-year degrees for people who want to be strength coaches or personal trainers, what have you. I don't think there's enough about active listening skills that are brought up in those 4-year degrees. But you can obviously go take seminars and coursework around those things to help you get that. So I think things around that would be helpful because I think communication is the biggest key. I've met great programmers that don't know how to hold the attention of 7th and 8th graders. But I've also met great charismatic coaches that can command any room that need to work on their programming skills, so to speak. But to me, the X's and O's are easier to teach. Teaching somebody to have command of a session and be a bit charismatic, that's way, way harder to teach. So I'm usually looking for things like that anyway, because everything that comes with the certification in my brain can be taught. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, and what I think maybe people need to focus on is learn the X's and O's, do things that help you get better about behavior change, and listen more instead of feeling like you need to tell people what to do.
Our industry is evolving every step of the way, and we're getting to the point where it's essential to have some sort of technology within your business for both the experiences you can deliver for your clients and your ability to grow sustainably. How do you use technology to assist you in your coaching as a coach and behind the scenes as a coach that nobody really sees?
I'm going to sound a bit like a boomer on this question because we don't use a crazy amount of technology. There are a couple things that we use. We do have force plates at our locations. So we used to use the Vertec. The Vertec was nice, but it was manual. And something that we started to value more now that OrthoNebraska has sports performance as a service line is having something that now we can test a healthy athlete on a force plate for something like a counter movement jump or a vertical jump. And let's just say, God forbid, that kid gets injured out on the field or the court or wherever. And so they go to OrthoNebraska to do their surgery, to do their PT. We now have data on what that kid's power output was like. Did they shift more to the right when they jumped when they were a healthy athlete with us? And are they still shifting to the right? Like, or are they becoming more balanced in the way that they jump and the way that they land? So having data on a healthy athlete and what could potentially become a recovering athlete is really, really big. So we don't use the Vertec anymore. Now we use our force plates to get that data. And with the force plates, we can also do things like an isometric mid-thigh pull. And so that way we can avoid one rep maxing, because that takes a lot of time when you have a lot of athletes that you're trying to get in a session. And it also has some risk to it, right? And so if we can limit that risk by just seeing what kind of force that kid's putting into the force plate with an isometric mid-thigh pull, it just makes more sense for us. We also, I guess we use things like blaze pods. Those are fun activities and fun drills that we can do with the kids. So we use the blaze pods, things like that. Something that we don't have, but as we continue to grow, I could see ourselves potentially getting is some VBT trackers. I think velocity-based training has some merit, and it wouldn't replace our coaching, but I think it could help us supplement our coaching. So if some of our kids just think it's cool to lift heavy, and so we have to kind of save them from themselves. But if we have a VBT tracker, just say, hey, you don't have enough speed on that bar to lift that weight, like it could kind of back us up in that moment and, put some merit to like trust the science. Like, here's why we do what we do. Let's lighten up and move that bar fast.
Jacob, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some great info about yourself. Jacob and I met at the inaugural Raise the Bar conference in Orlando. I think it's about 4 years ago now. I mentioned this in past episodes, but this conference did an incredible job leaving space for coaches to just get to know each other during breaks and between speakers. It was after COVID shutdowns too, so that just made it even seem like they were doing an over-the-top job with this. I think it's pretty obvious though that Jacob is a pretty cool guy based on the structure of the company that he works in and the position he has. And I thought that was cool enough at the time. And we got, along talking about training, gym stuff, exercises, a lot of funny stories with some clients. But to throw out the ultimate cool factor of I used to be a rapper in the tell me a funny story about you, just puts the cherry on top. I mean, come on, man. Wow. I'm glad you guys got to know Jacob a little bit more through this episode. Check the show notes to see how to connect with him best. That's all for this episode. If you want to learn more about FITLETE and the resource nexus for coaches and personal trainers, visit fitlete.com. That's FITLETE.com. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.